I'm Frank Mermis. I was born in Victoria, middle of 5 children, and the day I was born, on the 4th of July, my mother said it was 117 degrees with only fans, and from Victoria, we moved to Walker, where later on, as I grew older, I moved on a farm with my grandparents because my mother, she was raising us 5 children. We never had a father. So we grew up on the farm, and our daily life was going to school and work. So, and we had a ride to school in the mornings, but after school we had a walk home, and it was doing chores, maybe shock and feed. On the weekend we were manuring the barns, had a lot of other chores to do.
Hi, I'm Mrs. Mary Mermis, married to Frank. We live here in Hayes. I was born at St. Anthony's Hospital on 13th Street here in Hayes, and the day I was born, right away the next day they took me to my godparents, took me out of the hospital, took me over to St. Joseph's Church, and I was born in October, so they took me to St. Joseph's Church, and neither godparent knew each other, so the woman was sitting there waiting, and the godfather was late. Pretty soon he walks in and he said, "What are we doing together?" She said, "Are you the godfather to the child?" And he said, "Yes." So they got over to the church then, and they both didn't know my name, what my name was supposed to be. So the priest, being I was born in October, it's the month of Mary in the Catholic Church, so they named me Mary.
Wonderful.
But my birth certificate, my dad sent it in, it was Eileen. So I grew up then with my school things all being Mary. My marriage license was Mary, my kids' birth certificates was Mary on it, and things like that. And only when I had our last baby in 1967, I sent in for her birth certificate and mine and Frank's, and the Topeka said, no, they didn't have a Mary with parents like that name or that date, but they had an Eileen. So I had to call them, and they made out a new birth certificate for me, so now I have 2 birth certificates.
That?
Yes. And well, the doctor sent the birth certificates in back then. And it was ironic because I was born at Hayes, Frank was born in Victoria. We both had the same doctor back then because there was only one doctor in Ellis County. But I was born at the hospital in 1942.
Okay. Interesting.
And so therefore I was Eileen to them. And only they would refer to me as Eileen if I got in trouble. And then when I was in school, it had to be changed to Mary, but once in a while at home they'd still call me Eileen.
Interesting.
So therefore I got a new birth certificate then later on in life, and so now I have 2 birth certificates. So in order to collect insurance, I've got to have both birth certificates in.
Well, like from fall, we had wheat. I mean, not wheat, but feed for the cattle for the winter months. So we either had to shock that, put it in teepees, and after, I'd say we'd shock from 4 until 5:30, and then I and my brother and my grandpa, we'd milk 25 cows.
Wait, by hand?
Yes, by hand. So it was like 6:30, 7 o'clock by the time we got in to eat supper. And then we ate supper, and then we had to do our studies. And by 8:30, we all had to kneel down and pray the rosary. And Grandma had additional prayers that she said. And of course, after that, we went to bed, and early rise was like 4:45 in the morning.
Oh goodness, and where did you guys pray the rosary?
In the living room.
Okay.
Yep. And of course, at that time, there was no TV.
Okay. What did you do in the morning? Did you have chores before school?
Yeah, we got up at 4:45. We went out and done chores, and then while we were doing the milking and separating the milk and cream, my grandma was inside fixing us breakfast. It was either hot oatmeal, maybe bacon. At that time they rendered the bacon in the large crock with lard. And of course you got to eat 2 eggs, toast, along with a glass of milk.
Wonderful.
And then,
Was that milk that you would just,
no, it was refrigerated.
okay.
Yeah, we had what we called back then was an ice box. You had the ice in the top part of what is a refrigerator nowadays. And around October, back then you had ice that was 18 inches thick. So we had an ice cellar, maybe as big as what Kenny and Diane's house here is. And we had straw about 2 feet, and then we had blankets laid down, and the ice cubes were where we could handle them, you know, I'd say between 80 to 100 pounds. And then we covered them with cloth, and that way we had ice in the summertime.
Do you mean as big as the house or as big as the living room?
No, the house,
Well, and this was all underground?
all underground.
Okay, so somebody dug a hole,
Yeah,
like your grandparents?
yeah, my grandparents did, yeah.
How deep was that?
Oh, probably a good 8 feet, because we even stored meat and everything. Because after Thanksgiving we butchered 2 steers and 3 hogs, and a lot of that meat went down there. So
Did you put stone on the side? Did the cellar have stone on the side, or was it
no,
just dirt?
no, it was all dirt,
Okay, no boards or anything?
No,
It just stayed up?
just all dirt and covered with straw. And then my grandmother had heavy quilts, and it kept the.
So basically it was a big hole in the ground?
Yeah, it was a big hole, and you had to go down a ways.
Were there steps into
Yeah.
it?
Now going into the cellar, there was a door that my uncle put on there, you know, that you opened up.
And then there was a door. Where was this door?
Right from as you entered,
Level with the ground.
yeah, below the ground. As you entered, say, here was a ground level, and then you walk down the stairs, and they were made out of dirt. And then there was a door to the entrance of the cave.
Oh, okay. So it's a cave, like the ground is still on top?
Yeah,
Okay, so they dug it out. Okay.
Yeah. yeah, say, here's ground level, then the dirt stairs this way, and then all around here was the
So
cave.
what kept the roof up?
The dirt.
Oh. Huh.
I was too young when
Yeah.
it was built, so by the time I got to see it, it was good, hard, and solid.
Oh, so it was just old and it stayed
Yeah,
up.
so I don't know how they braced it to put all the dirt over it.
That's
and-
fascinating. Did other families have such a big
Oh
ice
yes,
box? Just so do those
because
still?
everybody had large families.
Do they still exist around here?
Not anymore.
So
no.
they would have fallen in.
Yeah, because when I was 18, electricity came, and that summer we bought a refrigerator. In fact, 2 of them along with a deep freeze, and my uncle went ahead and filled it in so that no accidents would happen. Now, as I grew older, then they did build a cellar where it was formed out in concrete. And then dirt over the top, and then they kept a lot of canned goods in there.
And potatoes and carrots
Yeah.
and things that they grew in the garden.
So where did you get this ice?
We had a large pond.
Okay, and so you would harvest it, or did you say harvest, or what would you say?
Yeah, we went ahead and we had a ice saw along with what would you call them, tongs to pick them up.
And you did that all by hand, or did you have some sort of pulley system?
No, we done it by hand. And if you want to know, when back then when my grandparents weren't around in the wintertime, we had a 1937 Plymouth, and we'd go ice skating with that pickup on on the pond.
I'm glad it didn't fall in.
Well, not when your ice is that thick.
Yeah.
Back then in October, early October, it got cold, and it stayed cold until April or May.
So it would be in the 110s in July, and then by October it would be cold enough for ice.
Yeah.
So you've seen a lot of change in weather
Oh, definitely.
since you've been here
Yes.
alive.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And back then when I was young, you had snow from early on until, and then even in March and April, you had large snows, anywhere from 12 to 18 inches of snow.
The only path you saw where there was grass, buffalo grass that just grew volunteer, was to the outhouse. They kept that shoveled.
Yeah, there were a lot of winters where you had so much snow and then rain on top of it, where the cattle could I'd say the snow banks were 8-10 feet high, where they could walk right over it.
The fence.
Oh, they walked over the fence?
Yeah.
And then they got away?
Well, that's where the feed was, where the feed bunks were, you know, and they seen it. So the one cow started, she was the instigator all the time. And when the rest of them seen that what she was doing, they followed her, and here they were at that big feed stack, you know.
The Carol syrup bucket with the lid on, with 2 spoons in it, and as we'd run it would shake, and pretty soon it would end up being butter, and then you'd have buttermilk also. So when that was done, our tag was over, we'd give the bucket to our mother, she'd take the butter out, and my dad would drink the buttermilk. And once in a while the lid would come off and we'd lose it out in the yard too. So, but that was our game of tag and making butter. Now, some farms had a churn that they could make, you know, it was churned by hand, and then they could make butter out of that. But at my time, I can remember I was 8 years old, that's what we did with the Carol syrup bucket.
So every time that you made...
We made butter when we milked cattle.
So all the butter in your house was made by playing tag?
Most of the time, yes. We didn't have a churn. No. And there was...
Yeah, we had a churn.
There was 6 out of 7 of us kids usually playing SAG.
Bucket.
Well, if you imagine a 3-pound coffee can today is plastic. That's what the Caro syrup came in back then.
Oh, Caro, like
Caro,
C-A-R-O.
K-A-R-O.
Okay, that still exists, right? That
Yes, it
company?
does. And you get it in bottles.
Okay,
It's
so
not a
Caro
tin.
syrup. So would they
Caro
say
syrup.
it's some sort of sweetener?
Well, it's put on pancakes and
Oh, like yeah,
yeah, and toast and things like that.
like a maple syrup or something.
Right. And many people mixed it with cream back then and dunked the homemade bread in it.
Okay. And then you just you said spoons in it?
Spoon in the tin can with the butter, with the cream, and it would turn into buttermilk and into the butter.
So would you be tossing it, or did you have a handle
No,
on it?
we just hung on to it with our hands
Oh.
and just kept running.
So all the kids had one?
Yeah, we each had a bucket. We had a lot of cows.
You had a lot of kids.
Well, we had 7
Yeah.
children. There were 7 children in my family.
Okay.
There was 3 boys and 4 girls.
Did someone in your family think of that, or did other families do the same thing?
I think probably other families did the same thing. Or my mom had a lot of ingenuity, I don't know.
Interesting.
But that's what we did.
Okay.
And in order to play tag, we had a dog that would chase the one that was, you know, being chased. The one that was chasing the one that was running from, they'd try to bite the one that was running and trying to catch the other kids. So we had to put her in the cellar, the dog, while we were playing the tag then and stuff. We'd play hide and seek and all sorts of things outside until it got dark.
Okay.
That was our games.
What else did you play besides tag and hide and seek?
Jump rope, if we had a jump rope.
Okay, was that it? Right, I feel like now it's a girl game. Did girls and boys play jump rope?
Back then, we just all played together. It didn't matter if you're girl or boys.
Okay,
We were happy to be together
that's good.
and have people to play with on a farm.
Mhm.
Well, as we grew older and was in town, then we played hopscotch. Got a piece of rock and drew it out on a on a street or on a sidewalk somewhere where there was sidewalks, and
So you
we
would
played
draw with
hopscotch.
like limestone or just a,
it was a piece of rock,
yeah.
chalk rock, and now it's on rock roads all over. But back then it happened to be in some laying on streets and things, and us kids, we'd pick it up and we knew what to do to make hopscotch.
Very neat.
We learned how to hop and jump and make those little blocks and go through them, and that's the way we were. And
What would you do with your wünsching money?
we didn't usually get much money. Mainly it was oranges or apples or popcorn, and we were happy with that because even at Christmas time, we didn't get a lot of gifts. We were happy to have an apple or an orange.
So where did people get apples and oranges? Are these two things that were grown?
There was
and
a
kept-
farmer's market usually, a grocery store
There were
carried
a
it.
lot of orchards around.
And there was orchards too. People had orchards.
Did people grow? So they would grow apples during the summer and then keep them in the cellar and then give them
Yeah.
out.
Right.
Okay, and then oranges. Were there oranges grown out here?
No.
No, just
They
like
were shipped at the
apples,
grocery
peaches,
store.
plums,
Mm-hmm.
grapes,
Yeah, the
and
grocery
then what
store.
we call the wild plums, and then kerns. They're a small berry, but very sweet. And of course, my grandmother made either jam or jelly out of it. So, yeah, and my grandparents' orchard was, oh, I'd say maybe 5 to 7 acres. So we had a lot of trees with.
What happened to that orchard? Because you don't
Uh,
see orchards around here
Over the
anymore.
years, you know, it got age got the best of it.
And climate change.
So, so then they got chopped down, and of course, along with that orchard, they also had a large garden every year, which I hated. Back then, we had blackberries, and I had to help hoe.
The Schwarzbeeren, or
Yeah, but you know, back then, they didn't do like I did with my garden. I mulched everything, so I didn't have to hoe anything. I was a lot lazier when I got older. Maybe not lazier, but smarter. But my grandpa, he had to hoe everything so it would look nice and neat, you know. So,
The weeds out.
yeah.
And talk about wash days.
sure, go for it.
We had the wringer washer and 2 tubs. In the 2 tubs, one of them had rinse water in it, and the other one had bluing in it, which made the water a little bit blue, but it also made your white clothes really look white. And when you hung clothes on the line, you never put the underwear or the bras on the outside line. The towels and the sheets hid those in the middle lines. We'd probably, with 7 of us, well 9 of us in the family, we'd probably hang up the lines full, and there was usually 3 to 4 lines, and they always had them going east to west, so the wind would blow north to south to dry the clothes. It would dry them pretty quick in Kansas. You could take them down and put new ones up all the time because we had a lot of laundry on wash day on Monday. Then on Monday evening, we'd take all the clothes that needed to be ironed, which was pillowcases, bras, handkerchiefs, white shirts, you name it. We'd take a pop bottle and it had a sprinkler in it. We'd add water to it, sprinkle them down, roll them all up, put them in a basket. The next day, we'd start ironing. They'd be damp. We'd iron them with irons then. Either it was electric, or else most of the time it was just a heated iron that you had on a stove when we were really young. On a stove, got it hot and ironed until it was, and you had another one ready to go to keep ironing. But it would take like 3 days to iron the baskets full of clothes that we had dampened down in order to get that done.
How many people helped with washing and ironing?
Well, everybody that was available was there. Us girls, there was 4 of us, so there was us 4 girls and my mother. The boys were usually busy with the dad. But it was always the underwear, the socks, and the bras and things like that were, and the men's underwear was in the middle lines, never to be visible to anybody driving by. And that was on a farm as well, but in town it was very strict. So that was the way we did our wash days and ironing then. And tell you a little story about somebody with bluing. You know, when the German tradition was too, when there was tornado weather or bad hailstorm weather and cyclones back in the early days, then people would take out their holy water, which I still do, walk around the house and bless and say prayers and spritz the holy water as you say in the prayers. And one lady, it was dark, so she didn't have no lamp lit, happened to grab the bluing bottle, and she went in the bedrooms and spritzed on her kids. Next day everybody had blue on them. Didn't realize it was bluing instead of holy water.
That's funny.
So yes, that was a funny thing about the holy water versus the bluing.
So was this bluing water something you would buy at the grocery store?
Yes, there was a farmer's store that carried things like that, and it was always bought then.
Okay,
Yes.
very interesting. A house.
Okay, in an outhouse, you didn't have toilet paper back then, and we had Montgomery Ward and Sears magazines. That was your toilet paper. But while you were sitting, doing your duties, or whatever you had to do, you could look through the catalogs,
Okay.
and you could shop. But you know, those were old books in the toilet already.
Yeah, you couldn't buy
You
anything.
couldn't really buy anything out of it, but back then that's where the moms and dads bought clothes as a rule, was in catalogs, which was Montgomery Ward and Sears back then.
Okay, so the adults would buy clothes from catalogs, and then the moms
Right.
would make the clothes for the children.
Mom would make slips, I can remember, and she did a lot of sewing too, yes, but not, and most everything was, like shoes would have been ordered mainly, but everything else was usually sewn. And they had a fabric store in the town usually where they could get the fabric to sew dresses and things like that.
So do you have to change an outhouse every once in a while? Like, does it
Oh,
get
yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that had to be changed,
About
because
every
it would
other
get
year.
full.
About every year?
Every other year.
Every
Right.
other year.
They dug the hole so deep, and when it got full, then why? And you could bet there could be a cat down there or something else once in a while. Frank's grandma remembered sitting down and there was something feeling on her hiney, jumped up and there was, I don't know, a squirrel or something come out of it, scared her half to death. But you had what they call a Nachtop in the house at night, so you didn't have to go outside in the wintertime to go to the bathroom. Otherwise, you had to go to the bathroom at night, so they always had a pot that had a lid on it. You'd go on that during the night, then the next day you'd take it out, wash it out by the windmill, and bring it back in for the next night, because you didn't want to walk out to the outhouse when it was really cold or full of snow or whatever. If it was a moonlit night, you still went outside a lot of times. I remember doing that on the outhouse.
How do you dig such a narrow, deep hole?
Well, you dig it pretty wide because the outhouse sits on it. It usually had two holes.
Oh,
Usually had two holes, so
Yeah,
it was.
we dug ours like,
It would be wider than that stand there then, and you could walk in with the door and everything else. And then there was usually two holes for sure.
yeah,
and pretty deep.
you had a floor, you know.
Had a floor on it then, and then a place like a bench where you sat down and there was two holes. And
did you have a wall between the two holes?
no,
No, it
Oh.
was
it
Would
just,
you
just
go-
braced well.
Would you go at the same time as someone else?
Oh yeah, that was common. That was common. Yeah, not guys usually with girls, but girls definitely. And when we took baths, there'd be three of us in the same bathtub, water, and use the same towel maybe, because
like on the farm with us boys,
they went outside.
we went
They went
outside.
outside, the boys usually.
Yeah, even in the winter time, you
Yeah.
know. Heck, you had plenty of buildings to hide in,
Sure.
so.
And they didn't need to hide from each other, so it didn't make any difference. They just went where they felt like. But
But,
no, and if a girl was in there, you could lock a door. There was a little
yeah, hooking.
hook and eye
Mm-hmm.
to where you could lock the door if a girl was in there and somebody had know the door, you couldn't pull it open, so of course they'd know someone was in there then. So even if it was another girl, they couldn't get in because you couldn't get off the pot to let them in, because you were a little bit distance away in order to get that unhooked to let someone in.
And one of my favorite traditions was Halloween. We went ahead and got dressed up, and of course we were teenagers, and we really didn't do any harm, but we enjoyed the oranges, the apples, the popcorn, maybe a little candy, and sometimes some money.
So tell me a little bit more about Halloween. Did you dress up on Halloween?
Yeah, oh yeah, we had homemade costumes, you know.
Okay, did you make your costume?
Well, my mother did.
Okay, what sort of outfits do you remember
Oh.
wearing?
Probably just a regular black mask with black clothing, you know, and then sometimes a broom with made you look like a witch with cotton on it.
Okay, you made a wig? Or?
No, it just sprayed the cotton all over yourself, you know.
Okay, and did you go trick-or-treating for Halloween, or what did you do?
Yeah, for Halloween. Yeah.
Okay, so you had multiple holidays where you went door to door then?
Yes, Halloween and New Year's.
Okay, very neat.
I grew up too with a lot of things like Frank did, like wünsching. I also knew the German winch. I was taught by my grandparents, I guess, with more or less. I was with my dad's parents many times, and so therefore I learned the German. In fact, I could pray the rosary in German because that's what they did. Although I didn't pronounce it correctly all the time, I found out later that I wasn't saying the Hail Mary exactly the way it should have been, but that was okay. I had my heart into it. And like I said, we were out in the garden, and they had like a block for a garden. And in the middle of noon, when the church bells would ring, then we would stop and say the Angelus prayer. And that's kind of reduced itself to hardly anybody doing that anymore.
So was that specifically just at noon, or were there other
At
times
noon
that people did
and
that?
at 6.
At noon and at 6?
Yes,
And that was based on the bells in the
on
church?
the bells in the church
Okay.
at noon.
And so if you were at the grocery store, would people stop?
Yes, the Germans that were Catholic definitely would stop and say it to themselves, if nothing else, because it was such a tradition and it was a belief.
Interesting, I never heard of that before.
Yes, and we had one priest that came back from New Guinea. He was from Catherine. He had been in New Guinea a long time. He was stationed back in Denver for a while and then came back to Victoria. And he brought the Angelus back into the community again. And I was so happy to hear that prayer was back in the community again.
Do you remember the prayer?
Yes, I did.
Do you want to?
I can't say it by heart. I'm